Okay, but it's a question. Who gonna show us the video? You say, show me the evidence. Because police department, they always play the little game. Probably the police, a lot of time, we ask for the video, and Mr. Perry in the back always say, oh, we're gonna show you the video. Then why have the body camera if we cannot see the video? What is the new rules?
So your question is, really goes to the heart of transparency, and it's a great question. A body cam video, as we've said before, is a public record and subject to the APRA like every other public record. The issue becomes, and it's an issue that can be overcome, and we've worked, my office has worked hard to overcome it, is at what point in time can you release it? My goal, both as sort of the overseer of open government and also as someone who will be advising police as we develop policies, and there'll be an opportunity for public input to do that over the ensuing months. We envision this coming online in the next 12 to 18 months are those policies. But our operating principle is this, is when requested, put body cam footage out there as quickly as possible. The only thing that will cause hesitancy is if we believe there's a case to be prosecuted and releasing that video would damage the prospects of a successful prosecution. And even there, our goal is to complete our investigation as quickly as possible so that we can push that body camera footage out. It's why we went to the Supreme Court. My office went to the Supreme Court within the last 6 months. It's been covered by some outlets. I see Amanda's here. I know she covered it. We went to the Supreme Court so that we could get guidance as to our ethical obligations as prosecutors to put out information in advance of trial without damaging the rights of the accused. So that's a situation where there's a case to be prosecuted. Where there's no case to be prosecuted, there's no reason in my judgment why that information shouldn't be pushed out very quickly.
To any of the police or political leaders, does this take the pressure off the drive to reform the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights? Senator?
Thank you, Steve. I will speak from a House perspective. Absolutely not. Every piece of legislation is still under consideration. We're working diligently with all of the stakeholders, some of who are here today, on reforming LIBOR or Law Enforcement's Bill of Rights, so that this bill, this announcement today, while very important, does not in any way negate the effort to reform LIBOR, and that's from a House perspective. We're working diligently. I had a meeting Friday afternoon. I've met with the unions, the stakeholders. Chairwoman Anastasia Williams, is one of her priorities, if not I think the number 2 priority, because we already passed her number 1 priority, which was the anti-discrimination bill. So we are working very hard, and today's events, however important, will not affect the outcome of that legislation. Not at all. We've had robust debate. We've had bills already, and we've had public hearings on this issue. Very, very, very vocal hearings. We've had input from the community, from the stakeholders. Putting it in the budget is the mechanism for funding it. This is requiring money from the Attorney General and from the state, and the Colonel's going to do his very best to get that federal money. So the way we do this, and we're at the end of the session, the way a lot of bills that we've had debate on, they end up in the budget because there's a funding mechanism. We have to account. As we all know, it is our responsibility as state leaders to pass a balanced budget. So it's very difficult when you have a standalone budget component to pass that. It must go in the budget to balance.
But I do notice that the policies governing the use of body cams are yet to be determined.
That's correct.
So it's, in a sense, won't the police departments that adopt this be adopting cameras without knowing how they're going to be governed?
No, they have an opt-in. They can wait for that. I have full faith and trust and confidence in the Attorney General and the Colonel to develop the best practices. And quite frankly, we didn't want to wait until next year to develop policies and then make this commitment. We want to make the commitment today, right now, right here, this budget. Please.
Yeah, well, our goal is not to sit on it, Kathy, and that's why the office can share with you our letter to the Supreme Court. What we asked the Supreme Court to do was to allow us to release body cam footage, subject, for a public if there is a public records request, which I have no doubt there would be. I don't think we'd have to gin one of those up. So if there's a public records request and our investigation is substantially complete, then we could turn it over without jeopardizing our licenses as lawyers and potentially jeopardizing the rights of the accused. So you would ask me, I think, in your follow-up question, what does substantially complete mean? We're talking about a matter of days, not months or years. So we want to make sure. So why is that important for those who may not be as accustomed to these issues as those of us in law enforcement? We don't want witnesses testifying at a trial based on what they saw on Channel 10 or 12 or 6 or on a website, rather than what they told us when investigators show up at the door. Now, look, whether or not we can assure ourselves of that, I've tried enough cases over the course of my career to know that if I'm a defense attorney representing their client and they can establish that that person saw the video before a police officer questioned them, then that's going to be a matter of leaving doubt potentially in the minds of a jury. My goal in doing a case involving police misconduct, when those cases arise, if I believe in that case, is to see that case through to the end and obtain a conviction. I don't want to do anything that jeopardizes that. So I'm balancing the interest in achieving justice, where I believe justice means a conviction, in my mind at least, with the public's right to know at the appropriate time. So our goal is to get it out as quickly as possible, days, not months or years, and at the same time preserving the rights of the accused and my ability to get a conviction. No, it won't, Kathy, it won't. It will not. What the bill is, the drafts that I've seen, and it's been a collective effort to draft them, will include a lot of the things that Steve has alluded to, which is what are those policies going to look like, what has to be included in them, and what's the time frame for rolling out the program. So Steve, there will not be a program of body cam use without procedures and practices in place that the departments will have to follow to get the grant funding to be able to use them. So that's one of the contingencies on getting the funding is you agree to follow best practices. And the teams have been working very hard on that. When I went to the folks in my office last summer and said, look, we really view ourselves as community problem solvers. It may sound trite, but it's not. We see a problem, how can we fix it? We know cost is an issue. How do we address cost? If you can address cost, how do you address best practices, public disclosure, and other things? So that's what we're going to work on before the cameras roll out.
Does this happen by calendar year 22 or?
12 to 18 months, Steve.
12 to 18.
Correct.
Could I ask one more question about the presumption? You had mentioned that the judge might say there's a presumption for the defendant in the case where the body camera isn't used. Is that going to be something I think the Senate bill has that, and I'm not sure if the House bill has in there that there would be, if the body camera isn't on, then it's a presumption to the defendant.
Yeah, Steve, that jury instruction was a federal court jury instruction that Judge Smith either delivered or threatened to deliver, and threat's too strong a word, proposed delivering if a police agency did not take a recorded statement of a defendant's confession. That he was going to give a jury instruction that said the jury could take the failure to record into account. How that might or might not apply to body cams, I don't know yet, but certainly that could be something that someone could bring up at a public hearing. We're going to have public hearings about those policies and procedures.
Jose, you're the one who released the video from the Rhode Island Police Department. Do you agree with everything you say here today? Or you want to see changes?
I think that one of the things I've grown to appreciate is that these questions are not simple. We would like for them to be simple, yes or no, black or white, et cetera, but there is a process that we need to follow. Obviously, we've had long conversations about what that process is. I know with Senator Costa and I have introduced other legislation with regard to the Public Records Act to make this more clear, more easy, and so I can appreciate that.